From the Ventura County Office of Education, this is the Focus on Education podcast. And now, here's your host, Ventura County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Cesar Morales.
Ventura County is the birthplace of an amazing program that gets students around the world excited about science. It's called the Amgen Biotech experience, and it's reached more than 1 million students in 17 countries since it launched in 1990. My guest today has been involved with the program for more than 30 years. Winnie Sloan is a biology teacher and chair of the science department at Oak Park High School. Winnie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for asking.
Okay, to kick off the questions today, what is the Amgen Biotech experience?
Well, first off, it's amazing. You're taking real deal science and lab grade equipment and you're training teachers up with that equipment, and then you're bringing it right into the classroom with all the supports that you need to do it. And this is something that you would do in parallel with your curriculum, assuming that you are a biology teacher and you're familiar with the central dogma of how DNA codes for RNA and RNA codes for proteins. You are enacting the same protocols that they do in any lab around the world right there in your classroom. And the students are the ones that are doing it.
So Winnie, tell me some more about it.
Okay, the steps in this lab, what you're trying to do is mimic the same steps that they undergo at any lab or pharmaceutical company in order to bring a drug to market, something like insulin. And the amazing thing about life and biology is that we all have the same code. It's DNA. And so what you're doing is you're manipulating DNA in order to get a certain protein. So when we use insulin in our bodies, if let's say you're a diabetic, then you need to have a protein that mimics the same protein in our bodies. We get bacteria in labs to make that protein for us. So our students go through those same steps. Now, they're not making insulin in the classroom, but what they're doing is they're taking a gene that is found in it's a red fluorescent protein. It glows red in jellyfish, and they're taking that jellyfish gene and inserting it into the bacteria and getting it to express that trait. That's something visible that a student can see, that they know they changed that organism's characteristics and their traits by the DNA that they provided.
These are some serious science activities. What kind of training does a teacher go through, and what equipment is provided?
So your first step is to go to a 1-hour online session where you get an overview of the lab itself. Then you will have a 4-day PD training on hand down at the Huntington Library, and you will do all the steps of the lab working with other teachers. You will have the opportunity to have guest speakers. Sometimes I've been a guest speaker there, talking about how I do the lab in my classroom and tips and tricks in order to increase your efficacy in that process. And then after those 4 days, you are a certified ABE instructor. And the amazing thing is you get to onboard wherever you're ready with your students. So you can do it it's differential instruction, basically. You can bring it into a basic life science course, to a CP, to an honors, to an AP and an IB course. Wherever your students are, you can meet that need. And it's not going to have an impact on the budget of your school. It is all free.
Oh, wow. So it is part of your course. It's not an after-school club or... No, this is part of the curriculum.
This is part of my curriculum. Just like in all science classes, we're learning the curriculum, and then we have an opportunity, right, to practice what we're learning about when we do a lab or an activity. So when we go through our understanding of DNA and how it codes for our proteins and the steps and protocols, they are getting to practice that with lab-grade science equipment, which is on loan to you the entire time of the lab. It comes in boxes, you unpack it, you need to prepare it. And that does take time. There is an investment. The materials, the consumables are really expensive, and usually for some schools, that's not something that they could afford to do. But now it's free. So you borrow the equipment and you return the equipment. And for a lot of places, it really brings equity to that location, because I believe it's somewhere over 60% of the schools that they bring this equipment to, they would not be able to afford it any other way.
Wow. So you've been involved with this program for 30 years. How did you first...
35.
Oh, sorry. 35 years. How did you first get involved with the program?
Well, when this program originated in 1990, it was just one teacher, and it was just one scientist at Amgen. And that scientist's name was Bruce Wallace, and he was one of the founding fathers in Amgen. He leased Building 1 in Thousand Oaks, and he worked with one teacher over the summer for an internship. And he really valued, or he knew that his company, he would need to have really good science education in order for his company to be successful. And so through partnering with one teacher, it is now 5,200 teachers now do the lab, right? And I believe they're up to 1.2 million students have participated in this lab that originated with one teacher. And that teacher was at Newbury Park High School, and a colleague of mine who's now since retired also worked with that partnership to be the first ones to do this lab in a kit form. And then I came to Oak Park High School, and then I started immediately teaching AP biology and honors biology and taking over that portion of the curriculum. So they're like, this is the lab we like to do. Okay. So I went to the training, and I have been doing it ever since. When it first started, when I would pick up the lab materials, I would bring Hugh Nilsson, who was the founding teacher, I would bring him a banana because he loved bananas, and he would ride up on his bike to Building 1. And I would literally park my car in front of Building 1 on the Amgen campus.
Wow.
Walk in, Hugh would open the door, and I'd start pulling lab supplies right out of Amgen and their materials. So, of course, it's changed now. You have to, give your driver's license and I think promise of your first child in order to get on campus. But now you get, the early days, it was just trying to do the science that they were doing in their labs. We were just doing it in our classrooms.
It was so exciting to visit the campus and to visit Building 1 and hear the history of the evolution of the program, and just to hear you tell your story. It just reinvigorates the whole notion of promoting science here locally and the experience that our students are getting in the classrooms.
Yes, it's supporting that science literacy, and I'm 100% in for that.
So how have you been using the program with your students? And I'm going to just combine it with my next question. What do students just think about the experience with this program?
Well, for me, once they have the understanding, the concepts down about DNA and RNA and proteins and the processes that are involved in that, then this is the follow-up. We say, this is how life works, and then my students actually get to enact that in their classroom. They are learning the tools. That's one of the first steps in the lab, is learning the tools of the trade. So for many students, this is the first time that they're holding a micropipetter in their hand that measures 1/1,000,000th of a liter. And we work with very small volumes because DNA is small. They learn how to do gel electrophoresis, which is used in labs around the world today, and microcentrifuge, and they learn all of those steps first, just to how to use the tools before they start in on their process of learning how to digest DNA and ligate DNA. And so this gives them, we read about it, we've talked about it, we've discussed it, they've seen pictures in books, but now it's in their hands. Each lab table has their own set of equipment, and they realize the ownership is on them. I cannot Jimmy rig this lab for them. I can't pretend this lab. This is not a cookbook lab. This is working for certain times and temperatures and amounts to be successful. And my students will tell me, like, in the short term, they just love it. They can't believe that they get to work with this type of equipment. In the short term, like, they will say, when I ask them what was the part that was most meaningful, that they might say gel electrophoresis, because there's so much stress in how to load the gel appropriately and run the gel, which separates DNA according to size and charge. And so they're checking to see, am I cutting my DNA correctly? Did I ligate it? Did I make new combinations before I take this DNA and put it in a living organism? So they know the pressure's on, And they have to do that. They are doing the hard things. They are building resilience through the process of the lab, besides applying what they learned in their textbook. And in the short term, the wow effect is there. They talk about it. They discuss it. They want pictures of what they've done. They want me to TikTok it, whatever I can do to get that information out. In the long term, for them, it puts them in the idea of a field, of where they might work in the future, a career choice. Because they're like, well, this is something that I can do, and I'm actually successful at it, and I like it. And then looking back to students I have that are now in their 40s and even getting older than that, this is what they call their origin story. Several scientists today have contacted me, doctors, people that said, this put me on the path where I thought, I can do this. This is something that I can do for a lifetime, for a career.
How amazing. So you have a lot of former students that have gone on to be scientists and in the medical profession.
Even some advising leadership all the way in Washington, D.C. So there are ones that you talk about. There's a process called PCR. It's like a DNA photocopy machine, so to speak. And I have a former student who is a dermatologist, and this is a PCR test she does all the time and requires, but her origin story is at Oak Park High School on how to do that. Even during COVID, kids are getting PCR tests. They understood the science behind it and how it was tested because we were doing that in our classroom.
Oh, wow. This is an amazing program. How significant is the hands-on aspect of the program in relation to maybe a traditional setting in a classroom?
I think, it overtakes my classroom for about 3 weeks. And I am, if anybody knows me, I am a bell-to-bell teacher. I value every moment that I have with my students. And so to spend 3 weeks on a lab, it's significant. And every day we start with an opener of what we're going to be doing in that day, and my students have prep for it. And so then it's right into the lab. And I have developed what I call hyperdocs to help guide them to be used in association. It's a collaborative experience. They have to learn how to work together. But every day they're doing something. As I mentioned earlier, the first day is all just learning the tools and getting familiar with the processes. Then their next day, they are given 2 different plasmids, and plasmids are rings of DNA that typical bacteria have to code for proteins. They're given 2 different rings of DNA, and their job that day is to cut it with restriction enzymes. They know the origin story of restriction enzymes. It's part of what when I embed in the lab. And this is how bacteria defend themselves from invading viruses, is when the viral genome comes in, they cut it up. Those are the tools we're using, things that are found in living organisms in order to defend themselves. We're hijacking that particular characteristic to cut our DNA. And once we've cut it, they understand. It goes back to earlier units about enzymes and how you have to denature those enzymes so they don't continue to cut our new products. They learn the next day how to ligate, to combine in new ways. Using the origin story is of viruses, which are the ultimate genetic engineers. They learn the tape that you use to chemically combine DNA of different sources and make transgenic DNA. And then the next day they do a big gel electrophoresis lab, and that part has really evolved over the years. It used to take a whole class period, but the technologies that we have access to now, like I use Mini 1, and it separates, I don't make any money from them, and it separates the DNA according to size and charge in real time. It's built so they can put their phones on and they're watching the DNA they have cut and spliced move through a gel in order to identify it.
Wow.
And this is one way you get a DNA fingerprint in court cases. Then the next day they are given bacteria. One is a control group that they will not alter. Another group, they will give the DNA that they have genetically engineered. They get it through a series of steps, absorb that DNA. Then they put it in an environment where it can translate that DNA into a protein, and then it glows red. And we also give it antibiotic resistance. That's a hallmark to see and verify that you have done the transformation process correctly. correctly. And at the end, when they're so excited, when they're pulling their Petri dishes after they've plated them out, they're bringing them up to see any red colonies. Do I have red colonies? And we keep track. It is a celebratory moment because they know they did it. And that was because they got the opportunity to use that equipment and do that lab.
This is amazing. Why is science education so important in the year 2026?
Science literacy has never become more critical. Science, when a student has the information, they can make choices about themselves personally and what happens with them in how they live their day-to-day life, understanding the processes to keep somebody alive and healthy, right? Then they can use that in their future when they're making medical decisions. I have many students tell me, I went to the doctor and I had this verified and I understood what the doctor said. And I could explain it back, or I could explain it to my father or my mother who was undergoing some sort of treatment because they had the information. So it helps them with their families. I think it helps them to make good choices about their community and how they vote, nationally, and decisions we make about our world today. We want to equip students to make the best choices. And these types of labs enable them to be the critical thinkers that they need to be to build the resilience that they need to have to keep those decisions.
Wow. So it's not only learning the content, but developing agency so that they can act urgently on life.
Yes. Thank you. Perfect.
So Winnie, tell us about your own journey that led you to become a science teacher.
Well, long story short, I always thought I was going to be a pediatrician, and I was going to go be a missionary, and I wanted to get a pilot's license and fly around and help people. And then when I was in college, I would tutor, and I worked for the biology department to help me, pay my school bills. And people say, "Oh, you explain that really well. You explain that really well. You should be a teacher. You should be a teacher." My mother told me no. My mother said, "You're going to be a doctor." She was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher, and she says, "Winnie, you are going to be a doctor," as if that was the pinnacle of what I could be. I still have, by the way, my grandmother's bell that she would ring to call the students into her classroom. Oh. Yeah, so there is a history there. But I thought I did graduate early from high school. I was just 16. And so I thought I have time. And so when I wasn't 21 when I graduated from college, I was just 20. And I thought I can go try to be a teacher. And I'm going to tell you, I fell in love with it. It was the best decision I ever made. And it's something that enables me to, to share my real passion is science literacy, but more than that is students. And I know students in the 37 years I've been teaching, the students have changed, the parents have changed, right? But these kids still need support. They need to be validated. They need to be heard. They need to be encouraged. I tell my kids I love them every single day. I open up my classroom and I'm saying, "Hey, all bright and beautiful, let's come in here. Let's learn together." And I want them to know that they're important, and I want them to make good choices. I want them to learn good study habits. I just use science as an excuse to enact all of that.
It's amazing. You're so inspiring to us all. What's the process for teachers who want to be part of the Amgen Biotech experience?
First thing, fill out a Google form, and they're going to provide you a link to that Google form. There are, of course, this lab is done internationally, but there are local hubs where you would get your equipment and supplies from. So you will fill out a Google form. You will go through that training. There's a 1 hour online and then a 4-day commitment. All of the PD is free. And then following that, you just get to enact it at whatever level is appropriate for you and what you feel comfortable with. You have support. You have numbers to call when something's not working. If you made a mistake, there are people that are going to come right alongside you and help you. And as far as anything I have, it's all yours. If there's any materials, any lessons, any pear decks that you like to use, my file is your file.
I am so excited at the conclusion of this podcast. You're an inspiration, Winnie. This is a prime example of the power of an amazing teacher and also the power of an amazing business partner who believes and invests in our schools. We're seeing a prime example of electrifying experiences that our students are having in the classroom. We thank you for choosing teaching as your profession, and you're obviously impacting not only students, but colleagues around the world. And we hope that colleagues in the county also sign up for this type of experience. We know they can reach out to you at Oak Park. So you can show them the ropes. And we hope more science teachers throughout the world, and especially in Ventura County, join on for this Amgen Biotech experience. Thank you for coming to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Focus on Education is a production of the Ventura County Office of Education. We encourage you to subscribe and join us each month for new episodes. You can find Focus on Education wherever you get your podcasts or at vcoe.org/podcast. We also welcome your feedback. You can email us at communications@vcoe.org.